Never in my life did I ever imagine that I'd be so unlucky, or my fate would be entirely cursed, or my Mercury would be in retrograde temporarily, maybe, or that my friend's black tongue correction, would have some kind of a magic that whatever she says comes true, because I seriously had a lot of things in my plate for this week, but one thing that I did not have on my plate was to actually come across the guy whose car I crashed in my class. Yes, the guy whose car I crashed last week is actually in my class. He's in my class. He is my classmate. And the story of how I figured that out is even more hilarious. For those of you who do not know what I'm talking about and need reference, the background story is this. The link is in the description. Go check it out. And for those of you who do not know who I am, I'm Shelly, the author, and this is the episode 2, or well, part 2 of the same story of the ridiculous life of Sam Shelly, the author, where I'm going to be sharing with you all the ridiculous things that happened with my life alongside my writing journey. Here it goes. Alright, so I go to university and it's a new semester, so there are like tons of transfer students from other departments. There are tons of new students who have taken admission in my semester right now. So the news traveled fast, and by fast I mean very fast. So like everybody in the department already knows that there was this woman who crashed a guy's car in the parking lot, blah 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 shit. And so I'm sitting and talking with my bestie, the same bestie who was with me in the passenger seat that day. And so we're talking, and my two guy friends, they come and this bring up the topic of me crashing the guy's car and making fun of me and making me embarrassed about the whole situation. And I'm like, yeah, well, it wasn't that bad, at least the guy was nice, blah 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 blah. And then all of a sudden I see from, again, peripheral vision, there's this guy who enters the class. Now I was turned back talking to the guy behind me, and so like we have two entrance doors to our class. One is in the front, one is in the back. So from the back door, this guy is coming and he sits right next to the two guy friends that I have, to whom I was talking. And then the guy, he sits right next to them, so he's like the third person from where I'm sitting in the front, in the row before them. And so he sits there and I'm looking at him, and I just feel something very familiar about him. Yeah. And then the most embarrassing thing happens. My friend just goes down and screams like, there was like a whole big crack on his windscreen as well. And I'm like, that is not possible. How can I possibly, put a crack on someone's windscreen when I did not even hit it? I hit literally the driving door. So like that has nothing to do with the windscreen. And then the other guy, my guy friend, he was like, well, yeah, I saw a crack too. And I was like, well, no, that was not my fault. It might be that the crack might be on the car from before I hit it, even, because it's not possible. The impact wasn't so hard to actually cause a crack on his windscreen. That was like not possible. And then, like everybody's talking about the whole scene of the car crash, and then there's other guys who joined in, and they're like, oh, so you're the one who crashed the car, you're the one who crashed the car. And I'm noticing that this guy, the third guy who entered, who's sitting in the row, the third person next to my guy friends, he is smiling. He's smiling in a very weird way, and not in a weird way, but in a shy way. Actually, he's looking at me. He's trying to make eye contact, but is unable to make eye contact, and he's smiling, right? And then my friend is like just screaming on, "No, you totally cracked his windscreen, blah 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 blah," and I'm like, I did not, and I'm like saying, "Wow, at least he was nice about it. He did not, he did not ask me for anything." And turns out that guy's smile spreads even wider, and only then does it click that he was the friend in the passenger seat of the car that I crashed. Remember I told you there were two people in his car, and there was one in the driving seat who was the one who's talking to me, and there was one who was actually in the passenger seat who was his friend, and they were the one consulting in their local language, what they're going to do with it. And then the friend said that, it's fine, let her go. And then the driving guy told me that, well, it's fine, you can go, let it be. It was that friend, and I finally digested, and I just go numb it's like I've seen a ghost or something. And finally, when I realized it's actually him sitting right behind us and we're actually discussing the scene so openly, I do not want him to know, if even if his windscreen was not crashed, I do not want him to know, or maybe go back and check if his windscreen was really cracked or not, and then come back at me for it, because windscreens are expensive. They're expensive, okay? They're expensive shit. So my friend just bellows out again, like, "Oh, you totally cracked his windscreen as well." And I literally scream and I'm like, "Ah, stop!" And everybody just looks at me in the whole class like, what just happened? Because I do not want to be more embarrassed in front of him. You know, like, I don't want him to come back and like, "Oh my god, yeah, let's get some money for the windscreen," because I totally did not notice it that day. Your friend mentioned it right now, so I checked in, and so, well, it is cracked, so let's get some money out of you. Well, but I did not want that. So I scream, and the guy, he actually makes eye contact with me. And he chuckles. He chuckles. And I just turned so awkward. You have no idea. God saved me that my teacher entered exactly at that time. So the class started. And then, like, when we're going out, when the class is over, that was the last class of the day, and we're going out, my friend and I, we go and sit in the car, and we're, noticing that this car parked right next to us is actually also very familiar. It is so familiar. And I'm like, freaking hell, it's the same car that I crashed. And then I see the door, it's all fixed up, thank God. And then I noticed that the car was actually brand new, because his seat covers, the plastic seat covers, were still intact. That means he hadn't even taken off the plastic covers off his seat. That's how new the car was that I crashed. And then I see the guy, the friend, who we were assuming was the friend of the driver whose car it was that we assumed. He comes out from the department. I'm sitting in my car. I'm talking to my friend, and I'm sitting, and he comes out. He goes right here from, like, right from in front of my car, so I can, like, see him. We make eye contact. He goes right next to my car right here, because I'm also facing my best friend who I'm talking to. And he sits there in the car, in the driving seat. He starts his car, and with a big knowing smile, he reverses and goes out of there. And all this time, I'm like so awkward, because it just turns out that the guy I was actually talking with the whole time at the time of the car crash was not the actual owner of the car. It was the guy who was in his passenger seat, who was the owner of the car. The other guy in the driving seat was actually his friend, and he was just letting his friend drive the car for whatever reason. But, like, and the guy whose car it originally was, he is in my class. He's in my class. And the fact that I lied to him that I'm not from this department. And my best friend just looks at me, giving me the look, and she goes like, "Told you, you shouldn't have lied." And so now he knows that I clearly lied, and I'm literally in the same class, and I'm like, oh my god, am I even going to catch a break from this? So this was part 2. Don't know what's gonna happen next. I'm gonna tell you, obviously, if something happens from here. I am not looking forward to anything, honestly, but this is actually, getting into a very good plot for a book. I could actually use